Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, How to Quickly Reach Time to Value in Manufacturing, with your presenters, John Heller, Product Marketing Manager, and Rachel Holmes, Content Marketing Manager for Vertex Software. My name is Maria Ma, the Marketing Campaign Coordinator for Engineering.com, and I'll be your moderator today. First, a few housekeeping items to cover. Today's webinar will be recorded, then available for on-demand replay on engineering.com. For attending this full live session, you'll receive a PDH certificate within 48 hours. If you have any questions, please submit directly in this webinar interface and we'll try to address all questions during Q&A. Now, without further ado, I'll pass it over to our first presenter. Rachel, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Maria, and thank you to engineering.com for hosting us today. Welcome to the webinar, and thank you to all the attendees who are joining us today. To start us off, I'm going to give us a quick overview of our agenda for today. The first thing that we're going to do is start off by reviewing a recent report from engineering.com called How Engineers Are Using Remote Access. We're going to take a look at some of the key statistics in this report and provide some analysis and key takeaways that are really going to help build the foundation for our conversation today. After that, we're going to jump into some various business initiatives that are really going to be good opportunities to take a look at and adjust to gain some of that optimal time to value that you might be looking for. And then we're going to talk through a few common barriers that we see when trying to achieve time to value in your organization and provide a few tips to overcome those. And finally, we're going to conclude by talking through Vertex and some tools to help give you good high ROI and low time to value. So as I indicated, we're going to start off by talking about this recent report from engineering.com called How Engineers Are Using Remote Access. Engineering.com put out this report just a few months ago, and really what it did was talked to engineers, designers, and product managers regarding how they use remote access within their organization. So we went through and pulled out a few statistics that were really interesting to us that will help build our foundation today. And the first set of statistics that we want to take a look at revolve around remote access requirements. So along the left here, you'll see what are some of the most important considerations for a remote access solution, and along the right, some important user features that are going to be the most important for remote access. Now, a couple things here to point out. The first thing is that nearly everyone recognizes the importance of having things like high availability, which you'll see along the left, and things that go along with high availability, such as file transfer, responsiveness, and stability along the right. You'll also notice things like encryption and security that are going to be really, really important for us to think about. And you're going to continue to see this type of trend throughout our conversation today of making sure that you are staying secure, protecting your valuable IP, especially as organizations are starting to come back online. Some companies are coming back into the office while other teams are staying remote, making sure that throughout all of that transition, you're keeping your IP locked down. The next set of statistics that we want to look at revolve around some challenges. So along the left, you'll see some high-level IT business challenges that are applicable in today's workforce. And then along the right, some concerns specific to remote access software. So as you look at these two things, you're going to notice quite a few similarities. For example, along the left, you'll see 37% are concerned with security of intellectual property. Again, we see that trend come up. And along the right, you'll see security at 50%. Half of respondees to this report indicated that security is going to be extremely critical and important when thinking about remote access software. And one other interesting thing that I wanted to point out here was that both along the left and the right, you'll see that 46% of respondees are saying that performance of applications is a really key challenge, regardless of whether it's a high-level business challenge or something specific to remote access. And if you recall from the slide previously, we did see that trend continues to be very important. If you recall from the previous slide, some of those important key user features were going to be things like responsiveness, session stability, display quality. So we're starting to see this theme of performance as we look at workflows. And then one more key challenge that we wanted to look at was how much time is being spent on some tedious tasks as we look at remote access. Now, some of these numbers might feel a little bit inflated. Remember that this report was put out like a couple of months ago, right when some of those major transitions were taking place. But even so, quite a bit of time being spent on tedious tasks revolving around hardware issues, updating software, installing software, backing up data. And in this particular instance, we're seeing about 40% of time being spent on these tedious tasks. Now, even if this is inflated, just consider how much time you spend on some of these tedious things and what it would mean if you were able to get back some of that time, half of that time, 3/4 of that time. What would that mean for you and your workflows and at a higher level for an overall company? Next, let's look at how engineering applications are being deployed. Along the left, how they are currently being deployed, and along the right, the expectation or the prediction for what's going to happen in the next few years. Now, if you haven't noticed it yet, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. These statistics are exactly the same across the board. I even had to go back and double check the report a couple of times just to make sure, but indeed, how things are being deployed right now compared to the expectation for within 5 years, there's really expected to be little to no change at all happening. So before we start talking about some of the implications for these things, we want to hear from you. We want to understand exactly how closely you relate to these statistics. So Maria, if you would go ahead and present that poll.
Thank you, Rachel. Attendees, please let us know, how closely do you relate to these priorities and challenges in your organization? Let us know if these match exactly like your organization, or if there are some similarities but some differences, or if it's an even 50-50 split, or a few things match but you have different strategies, or yours don't look anything like this at all. We'll give you a few more seconds. Interesting results. Looks like we have 26% saying a few things match, but we have different strategies. With the next highest, 23% says we don't look anything like this at all. Very interesting. Thank you. Rachel, back to you.
Thank you very much, Maria. To jump back in, some takeaways and analysis here from what we just looked at, what we just talked about, and addressing the poll response. So one quick takeaway that I had just up at the very top, the general business challenges and concerns with remote access tend to be pretty similar across the board. We're seeing that things like digital transformation and Industry 4.0 are really driving some interesting opportunities for engineering teams, especially with remote access solutions. But then those same opportunities are also creating challenges on the back end for IT teams to manage. And if things aren't implemented correctly or there's poor implementation, then engineering kind of has to manage that user experience and performance on their end as they use those solutions. So knowing these things up front gives companies a good opportunity to really think about and develop a plan proactively, thinking about how to mitigate some of those challenges, how to avoid them altogether, or even just get to a point where you can resolve those issues quickly to keep teams up and running. The next takeaway that I want to talk about is priorities for remote access solutions seem to be very similar when thinking about remote access and also local workstations. While this report didn't directly seem to talk very much about local workstations, this is things like performance and security and stability. Those are going to be important across the board, no matter whether you're remote or you're local. Just kind of as we saw just moments ago when my audio and my visuals were a little bit spotty. It's going to be really important to have responsiveness, stability, and speed. They're going to be important no matter what. So that's going to be key and critical when thinking about time to value in your solutions. And then finally, this idea of accepting and maintaining status quo. Again, it was very interesting and really actually very surprising to see that the expectation for how engineering solutions being deployed today and the expectation that those will be the exact same in the future, even despite the massive changes we've seen in our industry, even in the last 6 months. Um, is just this idea of accepting and maintaining status quo. Really, manufacturing companies and engineers should see this as an opportunity amidst this time of transition. Finding ways to cut out waste and cutting out unnecessary steps, especially as we're coming back online and back into the office. Despite this time of transition and uncertainty, really make that time of transition work to your advantage and develop some strategic and proactive workflows to address those. John, did you have anything you wanted to add before I pass it over to you?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I also was having a little bit of feedback on my end, so I took my video off as well. Apologize for bad experience on that. But Rachel, yeah, these are great points. I think as we think about business today in the midst of the COVID challenges that are facing not only us personally, but also within our businesses, now is a really good opportunity for organizations to take a step back, so to speak, and reevaluate processes and workflows and start challenging the status quo. Both you and I, Rachel, have come from manufacturing backgrounds. I know firsthand, having worked nearly 18 years in the manufacturing industry, that breaking through the status quo can be challenging. Change is inevitable, and my feeling coming as we are in the midst of this COVID-19 challenge that are facing many businesses is now is a great opportunity to challenge the status quo, reevaluate processes, and look for things that can take it to the next level in streamlining processes. And really, this is a great lead into sort of this topic about time to value, actually, as we start thinking about different business initiatives that are optimal for time to value in here. When we think about time to value, Rachel, I know you and I have had several discussions about this. There's really two different ways to think about time to value. There's time to value within your business and your processes and the jobs that you're actually trying to get done. It's the amount of time that you spend from when you first kick it off to perhaps when it's launched or when the task is completed, when the job is done, and you can realize that value. Then the other side of it as well is, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is the solutions that enable those jobs to be done. Oftentimes we hear from a lot of our customers that it takes an enormous amount of time to realize value in new technologies as they come on board. We've heard upwards of a year, 2 years in bringing on new technologies, and there's this lengthy onboarding process, training, rollout, development, and it really just pushes out the company's ability and the individual's ability to realize the value of that investment. And certainly with everything facing companies today, there's this need to be agile, and there's this need to react quickly without cutting corners. And we've had several discussions about this with other industry groups and with many customers as well, is that now is not a time to cut corners. Now is a time to streamline your path to value in a way that maintains quality, safety, and maintains connections with customers. And so when we think about different business initiatives, we hear from a lot of our customers, Rachel, that there's various jobs to be done, and now they're being challenged, so to speak. So for example, being able to perform a customer design review. Case in point, I can remember from previous companies that I've been at, literally packing hardware prototype in a Pelican case and flying over to Europe and then carting that prototype around for 2 weeks. Now that might sound archaic to some, and some companies are more advanced and have moved past that, but my feeling is a lot of companies are still struggling to find ways to adequately convey product data to customers. We see that the need to do this is of utmost importance, especially through product development. Engineers constantly are looking for what is the product, what does the market need? And they're looking to other functional areas such as marketing or perhaps sales. And they're asking, what are the requirements in the market? And I've kind of prototyped something out here. How is this going to be received with current and potentially new customers if we're trying to make roads into new market areas and open up new channels? And so the time to value oftentimes can be delayed. My example of traveling for 2 weeks, every time we wanted to push out a sort of a major update just to get feedback from our customers, certainly delays that time to value and realizing the investments either through product development and your testing phase. Then we think of supplier collaboration. I actually did a 3 to 4 year stint in the sourcing department for a company, and lived firsthand some of the challenges in trying to shorten up those gaps between when a project is kicked off to when a project is launched. And certainly reaching out to your supply base as early as you can is of utmost importance. However, we find companies having to do a lot of workarounds in order to get 3D product information out to suppliers, particularly as we'll go through here in a little bit, challenges around file formats, file size, things of that nature. And then obviously companies, manufacturing organizations, as they look to bring on new products, make design changes, you will hit these DFMs, so design for manufacturing or design for assembly. And so again, a lot of those rely very heavily on information out of engineering and collaborating on a 3D model to make sure that everyone agrees and provides input. And again, the ability to be able to do that in a way that reduces time to market, that reduces waste in the process becomes very, very challenging when tools and you've got disparate locations, disparate tools, different file formats, hardware limitations, software limitations, et cetera. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But when we think about, the ability to be able to find ways to provide optimal time to value in there, not only do we want to consider the things that shorten that time, but also provide benefits to the business beyond just shortening a time frame, for example. So you could be looking at increasing your value to customers and providing a better purchasing experience in some way. I think that's again, to come back to the environment that we find ourselves in right now, a lot of companies are cutting budgets for travel. A lot of companies, because of safety and rightly so, don't want to send employees out for perhaps face-to-face meetings. However, this connection to customers still needs to be maintained. And how can we achieve this? How can we provide value not only to our customers, but also reduce the amount of time that it takes to provide value to our customers as well? Additionally, we see benefits when it comes to quality and efficiency in being able to connect with not only suppliers, but other functional areas within our organization, with our designs, with our 3D product information. Think of the manufacturing facilities and the many things that they need to do in order to view a design, to be able to set up processes, to set up manufacturing flows, to optimize efficiencies, to get tooling, fixturing. All of these things take time, and there's many barriers, many roadblocks that can creep up when it comes to including all of those different functional areas in an environment that increases quality, increases efficiency as well. So a lot of those things we think, you know, from a straight up, what can we do from a collaboration around our product? Next, we like to take a look at, you know, how can we achieve time to value, perhaps when we start thinking about some of these bigger initiatives, perhaps around factory floor. If we think a little bit bigger, beyond just a singular product, a singular assembly, we start thinking about some of the needs to provide service training. We start thinking about some of the needs to do preventative maintenance, perhaps on manufacturing assets within the factory, managing those assets, being able to adequately have a decent picture of what's happening on the factory floor, perhaps without even having a physical individual out on the floor. There's all kinds of jobs that have to be done to be keeping factories running smoothly and operating at an efficient manner, and being able to react and provide those things that can turn the business around from an ability to be able to respond quickly to a machine being down, for example. The other aspect when we think about some of our different business initiatives, as I mentioned, is around service training. Many organizations now, you know, still want to provide world-class service to their customers. They want to be able to quickly diagnose an issue, quickly be able to put some visual context to what perhaps they're hearing from the field, or perhaps a field rep is not able to travel out to a site to be able to view a machine or to be able to view an asset. And so how is that communication being handled today, and how can it be improved if we were to take out some of the barriers that come along with passing around visuals within organizations? So we see, again, when we think about business initiatives and achieving that time to value, organizations want to provide ways to provide key instructions and guidelines in a manner that can be updated quickly, can provide accurate information, is provided in a way that can be accessed sort of, you know, at your fingertips. An ability to be able to accelerate part repair. If you're thinking about service, part repair and ordering, how do we get product information, visuals to our service departments so that they can make sure they're ordering the right parts. They can make sure they're getting the right service kits, so they're making sure they're getting the right repair kits that need to be put on order. And then really seeing this ability to be able to optimize logistics as we go through this. So again, there's many opportunities for companies to evaluate their business and look for ways to provide optimal time to value with the jobs that are being done. And I would suggest, and Rachel, I know you would obviously have some comments perhaps here about, you know, this is a time to challenge the status quo. It's now a time to sort of challenge, you know, the taking of the 3D product information and the workarounds that come around with getting this information off of engineering devices and out in the field to other departments. Now's the time to challenge those avenues and to look at ways to reduce your time to value with your business processes. But as always, there can be barriers, and so it's great to talk about the things that we as organizations want to do, things that we say on paper look good, and things we should be doing. However, we find that barriers creep up, and these are just a list of, I would say, a sampling of barriers that we've heard from a lot of the customers and users that we discuss out there right now when it comes to achieving time to value. So we just sort of talked about sort of time to value in your processes and your workflows. One of those barriers to achieving time to value is quite simply your organizational silos. There's this thinking that perhaps there's a solution set for just engineers, or there's a solution set for just manufacturing, or there's a solution set for just marketing and sales to be able to provide visuals, 3D information from product teams, to be able to collaborate around those, to be able to use that information to make smart decisions. But really, we would encourage our audience to think about how can we bring the entire organization together in a way that achieves that time to value in the most efficient manner, not just within your little silos, but across the entire organization. And so that's where we get sort of this jobs to be done. Well, a lot of our jobs to be done, quite honestly, involve many people from many different parts of the organization. Some of those barriers that we find creeping up in organizational silos are due in part to data size. I know, having done a few years within a marketing department at my previous company, that I was not afforded the high dollar laptop and desktop machine, nor was I given a license to a CAD program. When I did finally get a license to CAD or a PLM system that we had there, quite honestly, my marketing issued laptop did not have the capabilities of navigating that large data set in an efficient manner. It would take me, upwards of 30 to 45 minutes just to open a model. And then me being in marketing, not fully trained on how to navigate CAD, it would take me a long time fumbling around through that to find the information that I needed. Then it came down to a format. Well, I wasn't sure what format the customers that I was going to be talking to could receive. And so a lot of times then I would have to strip out CAD models, put them into a neutral file format, or throw it out on an FTP site in a way that could be consumed and downloaded from other parties that I needed to collaborate on. I just mentioned some of those tools. You've got FTP, you've got screenshot in emails, we've got screenshot in PowerPoints. We might have a CAD program file format that was created in such a way that it makes it very difficult for somebody else who doesn't have that specific software to be able to consume that information. Additionally, a lot of times companies are looking for ways to consolidate perhaps tools, but then this leads to very lengthy or costly deployment initiatives. As I mentioned earlier, we've heard from numerous customers and industry peers that a lot of times these various softwares take anywhere from a year to 2 years, maybe 6 months if the company is very very efficient, and perhaps there's a minimal viable product that gets them to a point where they can start using it within 6 months. But typically what we find is very lengthy and costly deployment that most companies have to go through in order to get systems, tools, software available so that others within the organization can consume 3D product information, 3D models into their area and collaborate on it. Again, as we've mentioned, we see many companies now facing reduced travel budgets. Not only are they not traveling as much due to safety concerns, but many companies, quite honestly, are having to shore up budgets quite a bit. But there's the risk then of cutting out ways that maintain proper communication with customers, maintain proper communication with your supply chain so that you can ensure you're getting the right feedback and statements of feasibility, either through your RFPs or your RFQs, etc. So lots of challenges faced by many companies, especially in this age of COVID and this pandemic that we're all trying to navigate through, and trying to get jobs done, trying to maintain value to our customers and reduce the time to value that we as organizations can see.
And John, if you don't mind, I might just jump in here and add just a little bit more here. When we talk about this kind of with our colleagues, we talk about how information needs to flow. And John's already mentioned it, but in order to get jobs done, you need to be able to have access to the information and the data you need. And kind of the running theme in these barriers is not having the access that you need to the information that you need in the context that you need it in. And I think that's one of the big things that we miss out on too, is not having it in the context that you need as it flows upstream, downstream to different teams. And really, I think one of the big ways to help break down these barriers is finding ways to align silos, not necessarily breaking down silos. I don't know that we would ever necessarily get to that point, but being able to align silos to the data in the context that they need it in. And that's something that I think that Vertex really hinges ourselves on as we move on to the next slide here, is how do we give you that connected data in context throughout your company?
Yeah, absolutely. It's aligning the visuals to your context. We all know that a picture is worth 1,000 words. That adage has been used ad nauseum, but it is true, and it's particularly true when it comes to many of our manufacturing organizations and customers that we talk to and prospects that we talk to, is that there still comes back to being able to provide context and to the data, being able to tie the visuals to the data to be able to make smarter decisions, reduce that time to value, and improve your processes. And so, as Rachel did a great job here of introducing this slide, we've talked through some of the barriers here that we've heard from a lot of companies. And when we start thinking here about what are ways that companies can take, kind of find their passing gear, so to speak, and kick it into the next level, and really accelerate their growth, perhaps in this time when many others around are struggling to find their way. Vertex here provides what we'll say here is a connected 3D digital twin platform. And so much has been spent here, as you'll see in many industry articles about the digital twin, digital thread, model-based definition, moving to a digital enterprise. But Rachel and I would like to encourage the audience today to look for ways that you can immediately get started in this digital age. Vertex is one of those platforms here that really provides a way for you to unlock that 3D product information and be able to provide a digital twin throughout your enterprise, quite literally on any device with any number of users on literally a limitless size model. And so when we dive into the specifics exactly of what it is here a little bit, at the core of Vertex is the fact that we are a 100% cloud-based solution. And so what that does is that enables Vertex to provide organizations the ability to massively scale up in size of model that they need to free or liberate, I would say, off of engineering software and off of engineering devices, and being able to provide that in a consumable manner for other organizations internally and externally. There is no GPU requirement. This is not screen sharing. This platform provides a way for organizations to quickly load in data without having to go through these time-consuming data transformations and wondering, well, what kind of file format do I need to have this in order to start collaborating or to get this information to a downstream user. There's literally kind of thinking about the fact that there's no GPUs required, and that's in part because we are cloud-based, and so no data is being actually delivered to the client. And I'll demonstrate what that looks like here in a little bit as well. And so the fact that we're doing all of the heavy lifting in the cloud then provides us the ability to infinitely scale and model and user while providing this all in a secure manner. And so when we think about, again, the fact that really the value of the Vertex platform is not so much enabling engineers to communicate within engineering, but freeing that data from the professionals who've spent a lot of time developing it within engineering departments and providing that to downstream users. We see that this provides companies a way to leverage that data beyond just engineering to develop perhaps rich 3D web applications while eliminating data transformation and eliminating the concerns about IP risks, while also providing an ability to maximize your current investments in CAD and PLM. We are not a CAD or a PLM replacement, rather a way for you to further realize the value and the investments that you've made in CAD and PLM, and providing a way to get that information to downstream users. And so I think now is a good time to just jump in real quick and do a quick demo of the Vertex platform. And so I'll just move my screen in here real quick. All right. So you can see my screen here. So the one thing you'll notice here is that I am operating off of a web browser login. And because we are 100% cloud-based, we do not require any type of software to be downloaded to your device in order to access the Vertex platform. You can see here, simply, we provide a couple different ways for users to get logged in. We can certainly work with your IT departments to deliver what we call a single sign-on experience here that makes it very easy and quick for you to be able to get into the Vertex platform. And once you do that, you'll be brought into what's called a workspace page here. And this is where primarily you'll be bringing in models, you'll be staging various collaboration stories to be able to work with other downstream users and other perhaps users externally as well. We provide a couple different ways of getting your information into the Vertex platform. We can do it quite simply by just hitting the import button, and that allows a user to pull in, again, their information directly off of their device. You can see here, over here, we provide a long list of supported file types for you to bring in here. All the major native as well as neutral file formats, and we keep adding to this list as we go along here. The other way that we provide value in reducing that admin time is being able to set up a API for users to seamlessly pull in information from their CAD and their PLM systems on some type of predetermined basis. So we can see here is a My Workspace page, again here, full of models and stories. And when we think about being able to provide information to downstream users, the main vessel that Vertex provides in order to be able to do that here is through a Vertex story. And a story, as we're calling it here, is literally a collection of snapshots, which are snapshots of the full bill of material engineering model here you can see. And you can see that this snapshot was taken of a complete submarine. And as you can see here, it loaded very quickly. Again, I'm just off of a web browser here. Nothing's been installed on my device. I'm on a basic CPU laptop, and I was able to instantly open this digital twin, for example. And again, the power behind what Vertex is providing here is that when you load in models into the Vertex platform, we essentially break it into many different pieces and scatter them across multiple cloud servers. Not only does that provide a very fast user experience and a way for companies to scale up near limitlessly in size of model, because we're able to just run more parallel servers in the cloud to be able to handle the data and the size of the information coming in. But it also provides an inherent security, is that each one of those pieces of this larger model then become encrypted, and they're on various servers. So if somebody from a security standpoint, say, we're able to hack into the server farm and walk out with the server, or hack into it in some remote location, they're going to get a encrypted piece. And if they were able to somehow decrypt that piece, all they're going to get is some small portion of this model with no reference whatsoever on it. And so you can see here, as I'm interacting with this model and moving it around, what we're doing then in the cloud is pulling together all of those different pieces that have been scattered across multiple cloud servers. We're compositing them, and then we're rendering them and streaming just the image down to your device. And so each time I rotate this model around, it's recompositing and rendering a new image instantaneously down to your device. Now, some of you may question, I see a little bit of image degradation when you're rotating this model around, and I would absolutely say, yep, that's true. It's not, the GoToWebinar playing tricks on you. It's that we do degrade the image quality just a little bit while you're rotating this model around to be able to provide a faster user experience. And then simply when you let off of the mouse button here, it will snap back to a clearer image. So this story was put together to collaborate, again, on a couple of different pieces of information with this submarine. And so there's multiple different ways that digital twin can be used within the Vertex platform. If perhaps there's some clearance issues that you need to work on, there's also an ability now to be able to put together a story of different snapshots of different specifications. For example, if you want to discuss with a customer, we've got a couple of different spoiler options here in the back, and as we just flip through these different snapshots, they're going to get a different look of that image. And again, all of this heavy lifting is being done in the cloud, so that literally the user, all they need is a username and password, and no matter whether they're on their mobile or a basic CPU, laptop, or a desktop machine, they're going to be able to access this digital twin. So that's great, you say. I see that story, but how do we get to that point? Well, let's just run through an example here of a supercar. We've loaded in this supercar here, and you'll see that it comes in, once we've imported it in here, it's going to come with the full bill of material that you're going to be able to interact fully with. So you'll see here, if I click on this tire, it's going to automatically highlight that over here. If I want to hide that to reveal anything on the underside of it, I can do so. So a very powerful way then of being able to navigate from a full model standpoint, again, literally on any device here. But let's just say I've got an issue with a rear spring. I need to find that in this model and put together a quick story to send off to another individual so that we can get this issue resolved. And so again, we provide advanced search capabilities based off of metadata that is brought in from your CAD or your PLM system. And so I'm going to do a quick search here off of that. I want to say look for a rod assembly. There we go. I want that rod assembly. So now it's going to pull up just those two items on my bill of material. I want to pull up this one. I can right click now to do a show only selected. That'll bring that into view. Now I found this spring, but now I want to bring back in some context to this spring because I know that there was some mating parts and assemblies that I also wanted to get a good picture of. So what I'll do real quickly is that I'll just add a section to this part. Snap that around so we can see it. Then we've, if you needed to sweep through the part, obviously we provide this function here. But for example, I want to start bringing back in some context. So I'll add a show only nearby, provide the ability for you to determine the distance to this part that you want to start bringing in other context to it. And so I'm going to say everything within 5 millimeters, and I'm going to apply that distance. And so now it's brought that part in. And so now I've got some context to this, and I've got an issue where, let's say, for example, the springs are breaking. I'd like to denote a couple of things on here that I would like to see some changes on. So I might come in here and add a dimension to this. And I may also want to add a dimension for this here. So now that I've got that view, I can just simply click capture that snapshot. And if I want to come in and add some notes to it here, I'll say these dimensions need changing. And I'm going to add that pen to it. So now I've got that note associated with that. So let's say, for example, I've got a couple snapshots put together. I'll take this one that I just took, and then a few others that I would like to have included, and I'm going to click this new story. Now that's going to take me to this screen. I can name my story up here. I can add whatever description I would like to here as well. What I can also do here is add any of the attachments that I would like to send with it, whether it be test specs or repair specs. I can also come into each individual snapshot and enable certain actions to be done by my collaborators. So for example, if I want to enable collaborators to do cross-section on this snapshot and maybe do some measurement here, and maybe this is the only snapshot that I want to enable them to export on. And so now when this gets sent to a collaborator, they will now be able to export this geometry. Here again, it's just a visual representation. Nothing is being downloaded to their device. This will enable them now to download this geometry onto their device, but it's only once I've enabled that. They'll be given two options in either JT or STEP to be able to export out that geometry. So let's imagine as well that I've put together a story. Here I've got one already canned. Just real quickly, I'll show you the power here that we provide on mobile. I'm going to share this with my demo account. I'm going to send that story out. Now I'm going to get brought into an account here. All right, so share my screen. I'll go to shared, and we'll see that this is the story I just literally sent out. So you can see here on my mobile device, again, once I've obtained my username and password, which can be done within a matter of minutes, I'm now brought into this story and able to interact with this digital twin or this model here, just as if I were on a desktop machine. Additionally, we also provide the ability, let's say once a collaboration scenario has gone back and forth a couple times and it's rolled out a new design change, Collaborators will be notified here with this red dot that there's geometry. There's new geometry available, and it's impacted some of the geometry within this story. And if I were to zero in here on this snapshot, we'll find that there was an overlap here with this brake pad into this rotor assembly. And due to the collaboration that took place within the Vertex platform, it generated now a new revision that was automatically brought into the Vertex platform. We've gotten an indication here that new geometry is available. And so I'll just click that. And now we'll see this geometry being updated there. And if I were to now come into the slide here, we'll see that now still showing a little bit of interference, but at least some improvements were made, and we may need to do some further discussions. So in general, that kind of wraps up just the brief demo that I wanted to show there. Come back to our presentation here. So in closing here, in summary, just wanted to close up with a couple thoughts that, as you can see here, there's a couple different ways. I showed just one of them, that the Vertex platform provides a very fast, powerful way for companies to collaborate with the digital twin, both from what we would say is a pre-built or out-of-the-box solution with what you've just seen me do, and being able to unlock product information off of engineering software and those heavy devices that are used in order to generate that information, and being able to free that to other internal and external collaborators. We also provide sort of this plug and play, or I shouldn't say plug and play, but an ability for organizations through our SDKs or software development kits to take our visualization aspects of this and plug them into some of your existing solutions, whether it be perhaps you've got a field training software already canned up, but you need better visuals, or you've got sensor data coming from your factory floor and you need a way to be able to visualize that. Vertex provides a very seamless, low-code way for organizations to bring powerful visuals to those systems. And again, we're the only solution on the market today that has the ability to scale up both in number of users and model size. Some of the value that we've seen from our customers and users of this have been a substantial reduction in what we would call admin or data prep time, upwards of 20 to 25% reduction in the time that they spend putting together information and packaging that 3D product information for downstream users. Workflows, so we talk a lot about this jobs to be done and time to value. We've seen organizations, particularly within training applications, cut down as much as 50% of that workflow, achieving a much quicker time to value and being able to train downstream users on new information, work instructions, new features, product introductions that have come out. And as you saw me demonstrate, simply with a click of a button and sharing your story in a secure manner, downstream users are connected instantly. So there's no need for your downstream users to go download software, update software that they might have, figure out a way to open a file format, for example. And this provides a very powerful way for organizations to get real-time access to digital product information in an interactive and way that provides this information in a high fidelity 3D way, providing context to your data. So I know
John, one more that I would add real fast. We recently heard from a Vertex user who was very accustomed to doing those on-site kind of customer visits and revisions and supplier collaboration. And in these times, in the last few months, they've completely stopped doing travel. And they said that by using Vertex, they were still able to make that workflow continue without ever having to leave their site. So when you think about time to value, think about the travel time eliminated there, and just even things like increasing safety and things like that, and how quickly they would have been able to send that product information to those teams. So certainly lots of value in terms of connecting with teams during our remote time as well.
Absolutely. Great point. All right. I think we are open to taking some questions if there are those who have them.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Rachel. We do have a few that came through. Our first question comes from Adrian. What workflow changes would help improve time to value?
So I'll take a first stab at that. When we think about workflows, there's a lot of what I would call administrative time in these workflows and preparing data. I can think of one example, again, back to my marketing days from my previous company, that the workflow that I struggled through was constantly feeling like I was bugging engineering for 3D information. If they did not have time to, what I would say, sort of strip out the heavy, model size down to a format that I could digest it in, then I would have to do some of that on my own. And that workflow entailed me having to struggle with opening a model, fumbling around in the model to find the information that I needed, screenshotting stuff into a PowerPoint or an email, and then providing that in bits and pieces, because I would often hit my 5 gig limit doing that, to customers for feedback. And so when we think about optimizing workflows, we think about the fact that Vertex can eliminate all of that data prep time by providing this avenue to be able to quickly access models seamlessly. I'm not a CAD expert, but what you just saw me do in a matter of a few minutes took quite literally no training for me to be able to do. And it's those type of workflow changes that add up over the length of a project and increase that time to value.
Awesome, thank you. Next question comes from Ram. Now, I believe you've already answered this question, but if you can clarify. Ram says, nice interface. Does it work well with Mac OS?
Yes, I did all of that demo on my Mac laptop as well as an iPhone. So
Awesome.
yes, very, very, again, device agnostic, software agnostic interface to 3D product information.
Yep, all you need is a browser.
Perfect, thank you. Next question comes from Natalie. Did you make these prototypes? They are really amazing.
So if you're talking about the model that I used,
Yes.
no, we did not make those. We received those from partners that that we've worked with. And so again, what you saw there was just an example of the Vertex platform's ability to be able to load. What you saw me there was pull up an entire submarine or a fully configured automobile with different options loaded in there. Some people call it, 150% plus BOM. So definitely a key differentiation point, and one thing I would like to ask our users to consider when they're thinking about time to value is looking for solutions that are device agnostic, format agnostic, and provide literally no deployment for you to be able to start realizing value.
Awesome. Next question comes from Jim. Our IT team is slow at getting new tools up and running, especially right now. What can we do in the meantime?
Yeah, that's a great question. There, because of how we've built in the security features and the fact that we literally require no deployment, no software downloads, um, there's no rollout by IT that has to take place. And we obviously want to tread very carefully with that. We respect that a lot of organizations, the IT function needs to be involved in the purchasing decision for that. But as far as um, a heavy time investment by your IT colleagues, none of that is required in order to be able to start utilizing the Vertex platform.
Great, thank you. Well, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you, John, and thank you, Rachel, for providing us with great content and value today. And thank you, attendees, for joining us. We hope you'll return for future webinars. Bye for now.